guys, I'm here today with another video for you. Today's video is going to be the time and place book tag, which I was tagged by the lovely Ange over at Beyond the Pages weeks and weeks ago. I am so sorry that I haven't been able to get this video up until now. It wasn't because I didn't want to film it, I promise. I'm very excited to do this tag. It's super fun. It was originally created by Jen over at Jen Campbell, and the purpose of the tag is to choose 10 books that you don't so much talk about like the synopsis of the book or anything, although you can give a little bit of that, but the main point of the tag is to talk about books that you associate with a particular time and or place in your life, that you just have very distinct memories about what was happening in your life and the place where you were and the time that you were in when you were reading these books. And so I unfortunately couldn't think of 10, but I did think of 8, and so I'm going to share the stories of all of those books and my reading them with you now, starting with Miss Spitfire, Reaching Helen Keller by Sarah Miller. I read this a long time ago in elementary school. I think I got it at like a book fair or something like that. Let's just all reminisce about book fairs for a minute. Didn't we love those? I know I certainly did. I picked this book up because it had intrigued me because it was about Helen Keller, and I think I had read like a leveled reader. Does anyone remember those books? They were just short little stories that went along with whatever level of reading you were at the time, and we would read one like weekly or so during our reading lesson. But anyway, I read one about Helen Keller one day, and I was very intrigued by her as a person and her story. So when I saw this at the book fair, I decided to pick it up and read it, and I loved it, and it inspired me to pick up Helen Keller's autobiography, The Story of My Life, which is now one of my favorite books of all time. So this book is just really special to me because it was my first introduction to a historical figure that I very much admire, and I hope to read about more in the future. And the second one that I have is something that I also read, I believe, in elementary school for the first time, and it introduced me to one of my favorite authors ever, who you have heard me raving about lately on this channel, and that is The Tale of Despereaux by Kate DiCamillo. Yes, okay, so I think I picked this up at a book fair as well, and I read it, and I was just absolutely captivated by it, as I still am to this day. As you know, I wholeheartedly believe Kate DiCamillo is one of the most amazing writers out there. I love her dearly. I will rave about her forever, no matter how annoying it may get. Yes, so I read this when I was in elementary school, and it was my first introduction to the wonderful writing of Kate DiCamillo, and I am slowly making my way through her catalog of books, and I think I only have 2 of her novels left, which makes me very sad. On one hand, I want to like read them right away and just devour them because I so love her writing and I want it in my life all the time, but on the other hand, I also want to like kind of savor the books because she's still writing, but I don't know exactly when her next novel will be coming out, so I want to, prolong the joy and the wonder for as long as I can. But yes, this was the first of hers that I was introduced to, and I just remember as a kid reading this, and it being one of the first books outside of the Harry Potter series, of course, that I was just absolutely blown away by and just utterly captivated by the story and the amazing writing within it. It was just really one of the books that helped spark my lifelong love of reading. So yes, this one is very precious to me. The next book that I have is a YA book, and it is important to me because I think it was the very first YA book I ever read. I used to go to the library, our public library, with my dad every weekend ever since I got my first library card when I was like 6 or something, and we would go every weekend and pick out some books that I would read during the week, and then we'd return them and get more when we went back, and blah blah blah. You understand the cycle. And this was the first YA book I ever remember picking up once I think I was in middle school or so, but I was towards the end of middle school, and I was kind of getting into the preteen, teen years, and so I wanted a little bit of, older, more mature content than the middle grade section. And so during my first foray into the YA section, I picked out this book. Actually, I think my dad pointed it out to me, and I read it and I absolutely loved it, and that is Amazing Grace by Megan Scholl. I've never heard anybody talk about this before. I don't think it's particularly popular or anything, and it's not an amazing, like, mind-blowing story or like fantastic writing or anything like that. It's just your typical YA story about this girl named Grace who I think she's a tennis star and she kind of wants to get out of the limelight for a while, so she goes to Alaska and stays with this friend of her mother's or an aunt or something so she can get a little break from being in the public eye and everything, and she, you know, builds a life there. And of course there's a boy, and you know, nobody knows who she is, so she has to deal with keeping her identity secret because she's afraid that people won't accept her for herself if they know who she really is and all that. It's just, you know, very cliche, and I'm sure if I read it now I would be like, why did I think this was so special? But at the time I thought it was amazing, and it was my very first introduction to YA, and I still love YA. I think YA will always have a place in my heart. I don't read as much of it now, but I think I'll always have it in my life in some capacity, and this was the one that started that love. So this one always sticks out in my mind when I think about it. The next thing I have here is one of my favorite books of all time, and a lot of people's one of their favorite books as well. It's very popular, and that is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I had heard about this. It had always been on my radar as a book that I wanted to read and that everybody said was amazing, and you know, it was just in the TBR of my mind that, oh, I should read that one day. But my one of my best friends in real life, who is as big of a reader as me, read it and absolutely loved it and shoved it into my hands and said, Hannah, you need to read this right now. So that was about 2 years ago. I just remember I was reading it during the winter of that year, and this book spans a lot of years. It spans like 4 or 5 years in Liesl, the main character's life, and I just remember like going through this book so slowly, in a good way, like savoring it, not that I couldn't get into it. And I just remember going through this book so slowly and feeling like by the time I had finished it, that many years had passed in my life as well. It just was such a long read, but in the best way possible. I was just like luxuriating in it, in the story, which sounds weird because it's a very sad story, obviously, because as I'm sure everyone knows, it's set during World War II. But it's just such a beautiful story, and the writing has such a dreamy, kind of almost eerie at times quality to it, and it was just so, I was just completely immersed in this world, and I absolutely was loving it. And I was just so blown away by Marcus Zusak's writing style, and he is now one of my favorite authors because of that. And I just absolutely loved this book and spending time with these characters, even though it was heartbreaking, of course. I just loved it. And yeah, I think reading this in the winter was the perfect time because a lot of this takes place during the winter in Germany, so obviously it's very cold and snowy there in the winter time, and it was cold and snowy where I was too, or as snowy as it ever is in Tennessee. But yes, I just really, the tone of this book matched up really well with the time that I was reading it, and it helped the book and the story make an even bigger impression on me, I think. And then the next book I have is something that I read at the beginning of the summer, so not that long ago at all, and that is Saint Anything by Sarah Dessen. This is a signed copy, as you can tell. Got it at Target, and it's signed, which I was very excited about. And I took this to the beach with me when I went with my friend and her family for a week to Panama City this past May, the very end of May, like a couple weeks after I had gotten out of school for the summer. And I just remember, I know that wasn't that long ago, so, you know, it's kind of like, how could that have formed such a big impression in my mind already? But I just know that looking back on this book, I'll always remember how I read it, how I read most of it sitting on the beach with my toes in the sand, with my friend and her family around me, and, you know, the waves and everything, and taking breaks from reading it to get up and go play in the water or play beach volleyball or whatever, and reading it as well on a huge chunk of it in the car on the way down to Florida. And yeah, I just know that I'll always have those memories associated with this book, and it will make it even more special to me. The next book I have is another YA, as most of the ones in this pile are, I suppose. They're mostly, no, they're all YA or middle grade, so, which makes sense because those are the kinds of books that I would have the most memories from, since those were the kinds of books that I read longest ago. And so the one that I have next to show you is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. Obviously I very much enjoyed it with all the sticky notes that I tabbed it with there. And I was when did this come out? 2 years ago, I think? And 2 years ago I was entering my freshman year of college as Kath, the main character in the book is doing in this book as well. And I just remember like reading it my first semester of freshman year and being able to connect with it so much because Kath was entering her freshman year of college as well at the beginning of the book. And I just remember being astounded because so many of the thoughts that she was having and the anxieties that she was feeling about starting her freshman year of college were exactly the things that I was thinking and feeling as well. And I just really connected with her in that way. And I really enjoyed reading this book, and I just remember sitting in my dorm reading it and just thinking, you know, someone understands me, even if it's a character in a book, you know. I just felt very validated in my feelings because of Kath, and I really enjoyed reading it and being able to relate extra well to a lot of Kath's experiences, as I know a lot of us here on BookTube can. This book is another one that I read my first semester of my freshman year of college as well, and that is Allegiant by Veronica Roth, the last book in the Divergent trilogy. I just remember that this book came out a few weeks after my friends and I had started school. A friend that I was talking about earlier that reads as much as I do had read this already, and everyone in my friend group has read this series, but she was the first one to finish this last book out of all of us, and so she was dying to talk to somebody about it. As you can imagine, if you've read this book, you definitely need to discuss it with someone after you've finished it, I think. And so she was dying for me to finish it, and I was like, okay, you know, I'll get to it soon or whatever, not knowing how terribly much she needed me to talk to her about this because she couldn't tell me, you know, because she wasn't going to spoil the book. But she was just desperate for someone to discuss it with, so I finally sat down, and I just remember being in my bed one night and sitting down to actually get through it and finish it, and so I could finally discuss it with her. And I just remember sitting in my bed in my dorm room reading this, getting towards the end, and a certain thing that happened, thinking, no, that didn't just happen. It's fine, that didn't just happen. And so I flipped forward a few pages, and I know, like a very bad reader, and found out that it had in fact just happened, and that was not, you know, something that was being imagined by a character or something that was going to be explained away later on. That in fact had just happened, and I burst into tears, and I just remember thinking, oh goodness, please do not let my roommate come back into the room right now, because, you know, we've only known each other for a few weeks at this point, and, you know, what a good impression to make after knowing each other for such a short period of time, her coming back into the room, and I'm sitting in my bed bawling, literally bawling, like sobbing over a book. That would be so wonderful. Talk about an embarrassing moment. So yeah, I have really strong memories with this book as well. And then I did discuss it with my friend, and we had a lot of great, you know, in-depth talks about it. And we are actually in the group who very much enjoyed the ending. Although it was very sad, we felt it fitting. And then the last one that I have to show you is, you know, extremely obvious, and I feel like at least one of the books in this series, the Harry Potter series, obviously is going to be in pretty much everyone's video who makes this tag, and mine is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the one that started it all. It may sound cliche, but I don't care. I can't help but include this in a book tag about memories surrounding books because, okay, I did a little research before I filmed this video so that I could get the dates right. So I was 7 years old at the time, and I was in first grade, and the movie came out that year in 2001, and my brother wanted to go see it because he had read the series up to the point that was published at that point, which I believe the third book came out in October 2001, so the month before the first movie came out. So he had read the series up to the point that it was published so far, so he wanted to go see the movie. So we all went as a family and saw the movie, and I really enjoyed it. And so we came back from the movie, and I said, Mom, I really like that. I think I want to read the books. And she was like, okay, you can read the books if you want. So I borrowed my brother's copy of the first one and read it. And like I said, I was 7 years old in first grade at that point, and I loved it. And I remember distinctly the day that I finished it because I was like on the last 2 pages, and Michael, my brother, was wanted to go outside and play or whatever, so he was trying to rush me like, Hannah, come on, I want to go outside. And I'm like, just a minute, I need to finish this book first, and then I will be right with you. And so I finished the book and closed it and immediately went outside to play, and that's just a very vivid memory in my head. I remember taking this book everywhere with me that during the time when I was reading it during my 7th year. I, of course, have tons and tons of memories associated with all of the Harry Potter books, but that is the story that I remember most vividly and that I wanted to share with you today. And so yes, that is my story of reading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for the very first time many moons ago. Okay, so that is my time and place book tag. Thank you so much, Ange, for tagging me. I really appreciate it. Again, I am so sorry that it's taken me so long to get this up. A lot of people have done this so far, so I'm not going to tag anybody, but if you haven't done it and you want to do it, consider yourself tagged by me. Definitely do it. It's a really fun tag. It's so much fun to go through your shelves and think of and reminisce and think of all the stories that you have related to the books that you have read. Just a little bit of an update about what's going on in my life right now. I am moving into my apartment on Saturday, and classes start this coming Wednesday for me. So with those two things going on, I am not sure what my filming availability and schedule is going to be like. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out, you know, how to work filming into my school schedule, and also how to do it with living with a roommate, because I really want to film while she's in the apartment, just because that makes me feel awkward because I'm weird. So I will do my best to figure that out, and if you will just all bear with me while I am trying to get all of that situated, I would very much appreciate it. Hopefully I'm going to film a couple more videos today, so I'll have some pre-recorded ones to upload to you in the meantime. But just, yes, please bear with me while I try to get everything figured out with my new schedule and logistically and everything, and I will be back to making videos as regularly as I can, as soon as I possibly can. And yes, I hope you all will be there to watch them when I do that. So yes, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're having a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!